Hello and welcome back to the GB Fantasy Football channel. In today's video, we're going to be covering the best attackers across all price ranges, ranging from 2 million all the way up to those premium priced assets, the ones that we're all looking out for, the ones that we're all trying to cram into our squads. Now, before I go any further, I'd like to thank you all for the support on the channel once again. So many likes, so many subscribers. If we can do it again for this video, it'd be greatly appreciated. So drop a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. Many more, much more content coming out in the near future. Let's crack on with the video and find out who is the best attacking assets. First up in today's video is that 2 to 2.5 million price bracket. Now, I can't lie, this has been an extremely difficult one to put together. There's not many options at all, and filtering through the promoted teams and the players that just aren't needed by their teams anymore, it's been quite a difficult one. But as you can see from the graphic on the screen, there are 5 players I've selected. There is one standout amongst the lot of them. Now, first up, we've got Ashley Barnes of Burnley. I believe he's signed for him full time now. He was on loan, I think, in January. So his statistics aren't exactly bulletproof in this manner. However, 58.4 goals expected, 69 goals scored for Burnley means he massively exceeded their statistics. Only 1.2 goals expected, 1 goal scored, 1 assist. Pretty poor figures for Ashley Barnes. Lyle Foster, I believe he's called. I've seen him sneak into a few drafts, that 2 million price bracket. I think people are more going there because their budget is stumped more than anything else. Same statistics for him with regards to Burnley, goals scored, expected goals scored. Expected goals, 4.3 and only 2 goals, which shows me he wasn't exactly prolific in front of the net. 0.89 expected assists, very much on the low side, but 5 assists from that statistic, way exceeding expectations. Would I expect him to do it again in a better league? Probably not. The standout one out of these 5 is Pirro from Leeds. Now, he was in my FPL team as well. However, there's been murmurs that Leeds are going to sign a new striker and he won't start the season. So despite all the green on this graphic, it is to be taken with a pinch of salt. 91.6 expected goals scored, 95 goals scored in the Championship for Leeds, 17.17 expected goals, and 19 goals scored. Phenomenal numbers, especially for a player in this price bracket. 3.3 expected assists with 7 actual assists. 26 goal contributions last season for Pirro. If he does start and Leeds don't buy a centre forward, he is a fantastic budget option. We've also got Mayenda of Sunderland. 59.3 expected goals scored, 58 goals scored, so we're leaning quite considerably to the low side there. 9.53 expected goals with 8 goals scored. Fantastic return for what I believe is a winger in that Sunderland system. 3.48 expected assists with a fantastic 5 assists in total. Really good statistics. I'll be intrigued to see how his season played out. Now, the last one on this list is Igor Thiago of Brentford. A bit of an anomaly across this list. Now, he did play for him in the friendly tonight and actually got a goal. 60 points, 60.2 expected goals scored for Brentford with 66 goals scored. That's Vissa and Embremo last season. Fantastic players, obviously exceeding expectations and statistics. Only 0.13 expected goals, 0 goals, 0.04 expected assists, and 0 assists. Now, his statistics, we shouldn't look into him too much. He had a really bad injury at the start of last season. He didn't come back. But with the departure of seemingly Vissa, and Wemo has already gone, Brentford have had a massive shake-up. I do think Igor Thiago was brought last season to replace Ivan Toney. Can he replicate what he produced for the club? Can he replicate what Vissa has produced for Brentford? It's certainly one to look out for, especially in this price bracket. Keep a keen eye on him. Moving into the 3 to 3.5 million price range for the strikers, for the attackers in our teams, we start to notice a few more noticeable names that we've seen over the years, a few more that have cropped up over time. We've got Beto, Welbeck, Evanilson, Strand Larson, and Jimenez. Now, first up is Beto. They have signed a striker, I believe, from Villarreal, but I do think Beto will start the season. 42.4 goals expected scored, and 42 goals scored really does lean into the low side for their stats from last season. 7.84 expected goals with 8 goals scored is a decent return, but that was mainly towards his form towards the back end of the season. Only 0.4 expected goals with 0 assists shows he is a goal scorer and not a lot else. We've then got Danny Welbeck of Brighton. Now, as you can see in the graphic, 59.2 expected goals scored with 66 goals scored for Brighton. They massively outperform their data, and I can't see them doing it again. They've got fantastic attacking assets, but I do think that might have been an anomaly last season. Welbeck, 9.57 expected goals with 10 goals scored. Very consistent in that Brighton team. And Evan Ferguson, long since gone out on loan, I believe, to Roma now. João Pedro gone to Chelsea. There's a lot less options up front for Brighton compared to last season, so he's one to look out for. 4 assists, also a notable statistic from his previous campaign. Evan Nielsen of Bournemouth, 64.9 expected goals scored for Bournemouth and only 58 goals. They underperformed their data, and I do think Bournemouth, specifically in the attacking sense of things, are still very much a force to be reckoned with in the league. They showed a lot of transitional play last season, a lot of quick goals, a lot of great build-up under Iriola. He's a good asset, he really is. If they can bump up those numbers a bit more, if he can be on penalties as well, with 12.46 expected goals and 10 actual goals scored, I think he is an asset to keep a keen eye on over the season across all fantasy formats. Good value for money, definitely one that's caught my eye. Strand Larson of Wolves, only 44.4 expected goals scored, but 54 goals scored over the season. It's the Cunha effect. 10.27 expected goals and 14 goals in the league last season. That was a statistic that actually caught me off guard. I did not expect the numbers to be that high, but clearly a very good campaign for Strand Larson. 1.04 expected assists, but 4 assists. Now, haven't delved deeper into that data, but I can assume it's a 2-yard pass to Cunha, who scored from like 30 yards out on several occasions, and that's what's bumped that number up quite a bit. And finally, we've got Raul Jimenez. Now, he was fighting for that number 9 shirt last season. I think it's his spot to lose currently in that Fulham side. 49.5 expected goals scored, 54 goals scored, so they did outperform the data. 11.99 expected goals with 12 goals scored. That should be green on that graphic. It's a very good statistic. Just balancing it out, only 0.01 above what he was expected. So you can't say he's not playing how the data suggests. 2.08 assists with 3 assists across the season. I'd steer clear of him, but he's one to look out for. On this graphic there, the one that stands out to me, Evan Nielsen. Moving into that 4 to 4.5 million price range, we are really getting up there for budget now. These are the assets that aren't quite premium, aren't quite the tier below premium, but that upper mid range, I'd call these players. We've got Chris Wood first up, 46.6 expected goals scored with 58 goals scored over the season for Forest, massively outperforming the data by a country mile. Can they do it again with Gibbs White maybe leaving the club? I haven't seen too many incomings either, attacking wise for Forest. Can they do it? I think Igor Jesus, perhaps? He was a good asset in the Club Fantasy World Cup game. He might have gone there. I know they signed a few Brazilians not too long ago. One to look out for. 13.35 expected goals with 20 goals scored. Now that tells you exactly who was carrying the load attacking wise for Forest last season. It was a fantastic campaign for him. He tailed off towards the back end, but not much to shout about on expected assists or actual assists. He's a goal scorer, he's a penalty taker. It's one to look out for. João Pedro, now 69.2 expected goals scored and 64 goals scored. That's Chelsea's underperforming data from last season. João Pedro's actual player data, 8.9 expected goals with 10 goals scored. Now, he was on penalties last season for Brighton, and he will not get that at Chelsea. He started well in the Club World Cup, got a few goals, just really did well and hit the ground running. 3.09 expected assists with 6 assists overall. So he is a creator in the teams that he is playing in. Last year he played more of a number 10 role behind Welbeck when on the pitch for Brighton, but I'd assume him to play more advanced for Chelsea. We've then got Cody Gakpo of Liverpool. This is more of an outlier, more of a differential within this cast. 86 goals scored, 86 expected goals scored for Liverpool, that is, with 83.5 goals scored. A phenomenal campaign. Goals going in left, right, and centre. But was it all to do with Gakpo, or was it a shared front? 7.09 expected goals is an okay return, but you outperformed that massively with 10 goals over the campaign. 3.77 expected assists with 4 assists in total. So a well-rounded just campaign in general from Gakpo. He's sharing minutes though, he's not a 90-minute man, and he was sharing them with Luis Diaz last year. Now, if the rumours are true, a certain striker later on in this list might be a primary target for Liverpool. So that's one to look out for minutes-wise for Gakpo. We've then got Mateta of Crystal Palace, 61.3 expected goals scored, and 51 goals scored only. Palace majorly underperformed on their data. If you have a campaign like that again, your normal statistics show you will get above 58 goals. So 7 extra goals maybe. Mateta leading the line, a really good option. 13.53 expected goals with 14 goals scored. A really, really solid campaign from the Palace number 9. Shone at times, his injury did derail him, but he came back looking decent. 2.27 expected assists with 2 assists in total, so more of a goal scorer than an assister. And the last player on this list is Johan Vissot. Now he's got a little asterisk next to his name because this data is Brentford's attacking data from last season. 60.2 expected goals scored and 66 goals scored. I don't know what club he's going to be at next season. I think it will be Newcastle. So that data is, take it with a pinch of salt on that front. 18.59 expected goals with 19 goals scored. No penalties in that data either. So they are all open play goals. Fantastic, fantastic player. And really, if you can slot into that Newcastle team, perhaps Isak Less, one to look out for. 1.83 expected assists with 4 assists in total. So we outperformed that set of data as well. From this list, the players really jumping out to me is João Pedro and Mateta. If we could get some guarantees on his minutes at the start of next season, but this season, bearing in mind, I think he would really be one to look out for in this bracket. Is the 5 to 5.5 million price bracket for those attacking options. We've got Marmoush, Bowen, Solanke, Ekitike, and Ollie Watkins. Now, as you can see, the green has ramped up substantially from the previous slide. Sun Dream Team pricing players really well. Let's delve into the data. Marmoush and Man City last season, expected goals scored 69.2 and 72 goals scored. A fruitful campaign attacking wise, and I see him going again even better this year. I see Foden actually producing numbers similar to the campaign before last. They've got players like Shirky, they've got Savinio, Grealish is out the door, of course, he's not there anymore, and Marmoush can slot in there. Yes, there's no De Bruyne anymore, but I can see Man City starting the season really, really well. 5.49 expected goals scored with 7 goals scored in general. Of course, that goal from 35 yards out, that one goal of the season, would heavily weigh in that way. 2.12 expected assists with 0 assists in total. Now, once again, I think he was the player to square it to De Bruyne when he missed in his last home game. So that would also be where a lot of that data has come from. To not get an assist from those created chances, you don't see that very often, so it's one to look out for. Jared Bowen, 48.1 expected goals scored for West Ham last season, with 46 goals scored in general. They are really low statistics. As you can see from Bowen's individual data across the season, he's carried that West Ham attack. 8.64 expected goals with 13 goals scored. A phenomenal return from a player that's not really had much help for quite a few seasons now since they won the Conference League. And then 6.47 expected assists with 8 assists in total. He had a very good campaign, 21 goals and assists. I think he's going to be a really, really tough player to look past in our drafts at the start of this season. Solanke, 59.7 goals, expected goals scored for Tottenham, 64 goals scored. So they did outperform the data. I think under Thomas Frank, they're going to be a lot better, and I think Solanke will thrive under that environment, a lot less chaotic, and he will be on penalties as well. 10.97 expected goals with only 9 goals scored. He had a few injuries in the campaign, there was a lot of rotation. I can actually see him just getting beyond those numbers this season. I can see him outscoring the data. Not much to talk about on the assist front, just 1.15 expected assists with 3 assists in general. We've then got Ekitike of Liverpool. Now, as you can see, there is a lot of dark green across his graphic. 86 goals expected to be scored from Liverpool last season and 83.5 goals scored. I think they're the wrong way round on that graphic. My apologies. It's 83.5 expected goals scored and 86 goals scored, with 21.67 expected goals and 15 goals in total. Those statistics are from the Bundesliga, and it's always to be taken just with a little bit of caution, especially coming from a different league into the Premier League. They're not sure how they're going to adapt, but clearly he is a player that has an eye for goal. 5.39 expected assists with 8 assists in total. 27 expected goals and assists from the last campaign. Now, if a certain Swedish striker doesn't move to Liverpool, I think he's going to flourish. That is Ekitike playing in the number 9 role, that is. Certainly one to look out for. Maybe not the first few weeks, but when the European campaign comes around, he's going to be on a lot of people's radar. And last up, we've got Ollie Watkins of Aston Villa. 57.3 expected goals scored with 58 goals scored. Even in the data out, just playing and scoring how the data suggests. 15.49 expected goals scored with 16 goals scored in total. He's not great on penalties, but there's a lot of talk and a lot of chat that he will actually be on penalties next season. So whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing for your Sun Dream Team points, that's for you to decide. I think it's always a good thing to have a penalty taker. 2.07 expected assists with 8 assists in total. Now, I'm not sure how he's managed to do that. It's exceeded the data by 6. Fair play to him. I'm assuming it's winning penalties on that front. But if you know, drop a comment down below, because that's an astounding statistic to just fly past by 6 goals in total. He's done exceptionally well on that front. But for me on that one, the two that stand out are Jared Bowen and Ekitike. Ekitike for later down the line, Jared Bowen for right now. Last but by no means least, how could we forget the 3 main expensive premium assets that we're all looking to get into our teams? That being Mohamed Salah, Alexander Isak and Erling Haaland. Now, many of us actually, this was our starting trio in our Sun Dream Team draft for last season. Trying to fit all 3 in this season with a decent draft around it is nigh on impossible, which just goes to show how much the prices have actually been ramped up this season. Now, first on the list, as you can see, dark green across the board, Mohamed Salah, 86 goals scored with 83.5. I've done it the wrong way around again. 83.5 expected goals scored with 86 goals scored in total for Liverpool. Clearly the data just had me in a spin. 25.37 expected goals with 29 goals scored. Now, I did have to double check that because I couldn't quite believe it. I know he had a fantastic campaign, but for the last 2 months, he really did struggle for form. 9.06 expected assists with 18 assists in total. Now, where I was speaking in the last slide about Ollie Watkins just smashing the data out of the park, 30 in general, 47 expected just goals and assists. Incredible. 36 expected goals and assists. It's tying my tongue up with the sheer amount of numbers involved, with 47 goals and assists scored across the Premier League campaign last season. What a fantastic asset. I think he's going to be in over 80% of the drafts at least going into game week 1. And I think he's nailed. I really do. Even for 7.5 million, can you look past him? I don't think so. Alexander Isak. Now, only one piece of orange across the board. Rest dark green and green. 65.4 expected goals scored for Newcastle with 68 goals scored in total. 20.42 expected goals with 23 goals scored. A really, really solid campaign for Isak last season. Of course, lifting silverware with Newcastle for the first time in many, many years. 3.6 expected assists with 6 assists in total. Now, Isak, if rumours are to be believed, he's left the Newcastle training camp and he is heavily pushing for a move to Liverpool. Whether Liverpool can get the funds together and just create a package to get him out of Newcastle is still yet to be seen. But with all that disruption around his name and the start of his season, not really having a pre-season, I think he's actually one to stay away from. There's no point going there if there's any element of doubt. For that price as well, I think he's 6.5 million on the game. Too much to risk. So personally, I'll be staying well away unless he signs with plenty of time still left in pre-season. And finally, Erling Haaland, 69.2 expected goals scored with 72 goals scored across the season for Manchester City. An underwhelming campaign by their previous stats, but still a decent one overall for the chaos and the sheer unpredictability that they brought to the last season. 22.01 expected goals scored with 22 goals scored itself. Just incredibly stable numbers across the season for Haaland despite the injury. 2.02 expected assists with only 3 assists in the season. Now we know what we're getting from Erling Haaland when we put him in our teams. He's not a creator. He's not going to drop into the number 10 position and just pull the strings. He's going to stay in the box. He's going to score your goals. And I do think I'm going to have to get him in the draft one way or another. That fear of missing out is just, it's too much. If he goes off again like he did at the start of last season, there's going to be just far too much catching up to do. Even with 30 odd game weeks still left, that's the sort of damage that Haaland can do. So from this list, as you can tell, Mohamed Salah is the standout one for me. And that concludes today's video on the attacking assets within Sun Dream Team, racing all the way up from 2 million, all the way up to Mohamed Salah at his premium 7.5 million price bracket. Still have to take a deep breath, figuring out that it's 15 million to get Haaland and Salah into the team this season just for the two of them. But there's a reason for that. The data shows it, and hopefully from the players that I've showed you today, you've taken a few statistics away, you've put them into your teams and maybe made a few changes here and there. If so, do drop a comment down below on how it has affected your latest draft. Drop a thumbs up on today's video if you've enjoyed and hit that subscribe button. It pushes it out to all the relevant Sun Dream Team fantasy players and any fantasy players in general. Let's get the community growing and let's see what we can build here on the channel. The socials are in the description below. We've got Insta, we've got X, we've got TikTok, constantly posting over there, so do go check it out. That is it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll be seeing you in a new video very soon.